Hi everyone, it's Lindsay with High Altitude Astrology. My video today is going to be about the summer solstice, which occurs on June 20th, 2020 at 3:43 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time in the Northern Hemisphere. And this is the chart of the solstice on the screen. The solstice happens every year around the same time. And what it is an astronomical event as well as an astrological event. And I wanted to bring up some information to start us off talking about what the solstice is from an astronomical perspective. And this is from earthsky.org. And they write, ancient cultures knew that the sun's path across the sky, the length of daylight, and the location of the sunrise and sunset all shifted in a regular way throughout the year. They built monuments such as Stonehenge to follow the sun's yearly progress. Today we know that the solstice is an astronomical event caused by the Earth's tilt on its axis and its motion in orbit around the sun. It's because Earth doesn't orbit upright. Instead, our world is tilted on its axis by 23.5 degrees. Earth's northern and southern hemispheres trade places in receiving the sun's light and warmth most directly. At the June solstice, Earth is positioned in its orbit so that our world's north pole is leaning most toward the sun. And as seen from the Earth, the sun is directly overhead at noon, at an imaginary line encircling the globe known as the Tropic of Cancer, named after the constellation Cancer the Crab. This is as far north as the sun ever gets. And here's another image of this, and you can see this is the image of the summer solstice right here, where the Earth is tilted towards the sun, showing that the northern hemisphere is what is receiving most of the sun. And so this is a day when we have actually the longest day of the year, so the most light in the northern hemisphere. And that becomes significant when we're thinking about the astrological significance of the solstice, because the sun symbolically in astrology relates to our identity, our purpose, the radiating of our divine light out into the world. A few more keywords for the sun is, I express my individuality, I manifest my creativity, and I express my will. So to have the sun on the solstice, the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere, is symbolizing that it is a time when we are feeling most connected to that light shining through us. And that light shining through us is in the sign of Cancer, always at the solstice. And Cancer has to do with our emotional expression, our feelings, our ability to nurture, our ability to care, our ability to mother. These are all Cancerian qualities. A few more keywords would be sensitivity, personal warmth, domesticity, playfulness, spontaneity, and self-protectiveness, as well as moodiness and possessiveness. So when we are experiencing the symbolism of the summer solstice energy, we are really feeling and connecting to our light shining through us collectively in this very Cancerian, nurturing, mothering, caring way. Now, what's interesting about this particular solstice, and I will be making another video about it, is that the next day we will be having a new moon solar eclipse at 0 degrees of Cancer. So this is adding another layer to the symbolism of this time of year for us collectively. But again, I will be addressing that in another video for you all. So let's break down what the solstice is, the solstice chart is saying to us coming up here on the 20th of June. You can see here that the sun is at 0 degrees of Cancer, 0 minutes at the exact time of the solstice. And one thing to note is that the sun has just made a conjunction with the North Node at 29 degrees Gemini, just a day prior. So that becomes a significant symbol of this solstice chart because the sun and the North Node are still quite close. Now back to the solstice chart. So what does that mean when the sun and the North Node combine? Well, that happens once a year, and the North Node relates to our collective karma. It relates to where we're all headed on a path of destiny or fate together. And what happens is we get the North Node in a sign for about 1.5 years, and it really gives us an opportunity to begin to feel where we are going collectively in that sense. And the North Node in Gemini means that the South Node is in Sagittarius, and the South Node has a lot to do with where we've come from and what we're leaving behind. I mean, we've sort of mastered that energy in a sense, but so it can be useful, but it also can be what we're so familiar with that it becomes our default. And the North Node is saying we need to actually step more into this Gemini energy collectively. And Gemini has to do with thinking and rationalizing. It's ruled by Mercury, the planet that is about moving around and collecting information and gathering data and listening and sharing. So the North Node in Gemini collectively is talking about how we are actually needing to be doing that with one another. We need to be sharing it. It relates more to our local communities around us. And so it has to do with connecting more with people in our local community and sharing information, but information that then helps us make decisions. So there's a very logical and rational function to Gemini, whereas Sagittarius is more about bigger concepts and possibilities. And there's more of in some ways it can be just wanting to expand and grow so much that sometimes the kind of the well thought out detailed process isn't always involved. And that's where Jupiter, the planet that rules Sagittarius, comes into play, because it wants to just grow and expand at any cost sometimes, and just kind of throwing, what would you call it? Like throwing caution to the wind. So this is saying with the North Node in Gemini that we are really working more on our factual information in our environments that helps us inform ourselves and inform others. Now, the sun, having just conjuncted this North Node in Gemini, means that there's something significant at this time of the solstice, where as we're moving into the Cancerian energy of emotions and feelings, we can't forget to bring in the ability to be rational and logical as well, because Cancer can become so emotionally identified that the feelings take over and the logic and the rationality actually kind of goes out the window. So a significant part of this solstice chart to be remembering as we're moving through this solstice time and shining our light through our caring, emotional, and nurturing nature. And remember, this is the chart that is speaking to us until the next solstice occurs. So this energy frequency of this chart will be moving forward with us. And another piece of it that we need to look at clearly is that the sun is going to be making a 150-degree angle between Saturn in Aquarius retrograde at 0 degrees 42 minutes. So you see the sun here at 0 degrees 0 minutes in Cancer, and then here's Saturn at 0 degrees Aquarius 42 minutes. And Saturn in Aquarius Saturn's just sort of dipped its toes into Aquarius recently, but now it's retrograding back into Capricorn. It's going to finish up its travel, its 2.5-year travel through Capricorn, and then it's going to solidify itself in Aquarius. Now, Saturn used to be the old ruler, or is the traditional ruler of Aquarius. Now it's Uranus. So there is something about Saturn and Aquarius that actually is familiar to one another. And Saturn is about discipline, and it's about structure, and the structures that are built in order to contain our society and hold our society together, as well as our own lives. So it often deals with the work we do, or it deals with ethics, although Sagittarius and Jupiter are also connected with that, but this is more of the implementation of it, and the order and the structure of how they operate within a society. The other things that Saturn relates to are responsibility, defining goals, and having personal authority. Now, in the sign of Aquarius, Aquarius is this very unique sign, this unique energy. It does connect us to humanity. It also connects us to progress and science and technology and revolution and things that help move humanity forward in order to help create an environment that is prosperous for everyone. So we can see that with Saturn in Aquarius, that there's something about the structures of our society, the order of our society is having to adjust to a more humanitarian oriented energy at this time, and moving into the next 2.5 years, it's going to become even more important. Now, with the Sun in Cancer in conjunct the Saturn in Aquarius retrograde, what this is saying is, and I should say the retrograde is important too of Saturn, because it's helping us kind of take us back and review. And actually Saturn's going to move back into Capricorn too for a brief period of time. So we are reviewing right now. We're reviewing, okay, where is this principle of order, and this principle of structure, and this principle of responsibility, and this principle of personal authority? Where is it? How is it operating in humanity? And you know, we're getting to see maybe where some of the cracks in the structure are, and how it needs to ultimately be worked at and adjusted. But right now, this is more of the reviewing time as Saturn's retrograding, and then it's going to move back into Capricorn, which is going to bring up even more of the structural system, because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. So again, reviewing a lot of these government structures, anything dealing with the Capricornian principle of authority and structures and patriarchy and masculinity, the type of masculinity where we want to, you know, work at achieving our goals and gaining. These are all the aspects of society that are kind of being reviewed right now with Saturn retrograding, in order for us to get a real clear idea of what really kind of needs to be eliminated, because Saturn has that kind of quality to it as well. It's about eliminating what's not useful and what's not working. And then of course, Jupiter and Pluto are also in the sign of Capricorn right now, and that is creating huge transformation and opportunity for growth for us as a society as well, especially because they are in the sign of Capricorn. But going back to the Saturn in conjunct the Sun, what this could say is that because the in conjunct, it's like the two energies don't see each other. They're at a strange angle, 150 degrees, where they're both trying to get their needs met, but they can't quite see that they need to work with one another ultimately. And so the in conjunct relates to that sort of just something that we know is there, but we're not quite certain how to address it, or how to deal with it, or what exactly that it is. So what this is suggesting, the Sun because it has to do with the elements and this and the signs, essentially, which are the elements and the modalities of each sign. So Cancer, again, is more about feeling and more about our emotions, whereas Aquarius is more like totally in its mind, it's air, it's the thinker, but thinking about the future. So how do we then shine our light through our emotions and our feelings, while at the same time recognizing that there are responsibilities and there are ways that we need to establish going about making the world a better place, essentially, you know, and where is the balance between our emotions and our feelings versus the effort and discipline and structure needed to move towards the future. And I think because we're moving into this eclipse time around the solstice too, that there is going to be a lot of clearing out of the emotional nature collectively and personally for ourselves, because that's what eclipses do. And it will allow us to get more in touch with new emotions and new ways of coming forth as nurturing and as mothering and as sensitive, collectively and personally. And it's going to involve having to really recognize our personal authority, in the sense that we have to act and behave in ways that does take into account all of humanity. We are going to have, around the solstice time, a nice sextile between Mars in Pisces and Jupiter in Capricorn retrograding. So the sextile takes place a little bit before the solstice. And you can see it here with the Mars sextiling the Jupiter. Mars in Pisces, this is acting in a way that is compassionate and has empathy and has universal love and understanding. And it's sextiling Jupiter in Capricorn, Jupiter that's retrograding in Capricorn. And Jupiter in Capricorn is in a little bit of a challenging position. It's in what's called its fall, which means it just has a more of a difficult time operating through that energy. Jupiter does. Because Jupiter, again, wants to expand and grow, and it has all sorts of philosophies and new ways of looking at things. And it also has to do with morals and ethics. But Capricorn is like, okay, we need structure, we need a plan. How do we go about executing? But also, because Pluto's nearby, we definitely can say that there is something about the Capricornian energy that's going through a huge transformation right now. And so I would say, with Jupiter retrograding in Capricorn, sextiling this Mars in Pisces, is that the Jupiter is, we are being asked to see how sometimes the expansive nature of Jupiter can want to expand at all costs in Capricorn without considering its impact on others. And I think that's a big part of the Capricorn transformation that's going on with Jupiter and Capricorn conjunct, which is going to come up for the second time at the end of June here. But we're really just having to look at the archetype of Capricorn in this sort of attitude of get ahead at all costs, you know, being on top, being number one. You might call it, I've referred to it sort of as this principle of male what is it called? Toxic masculinity, which it's a term I don't want it to sound like it's pointing fingers, because I do feel like toxic masculinity can exist in everyone. We all have male and female energies. So it has to do with this, again, this energy of like, how do I get ahead? How do I succeed? And it can be it can be amoral, you know, ultimately, you know, and that's why Jupiter is here to help kind of regulate or recalibrate the principle of of Capricorn to a more ethical and moral expression. And, you know, obviously with Pluto there, again, we are going through deep transformation, seeing the shadow side of Capricorn and seeing all of the ways that this energy plays itself out. And ultimately we'll hopefully, you know, come through this with some new philosophies, new ethics, new morals, new perspectives that help us to thrive. So with the Jupiter sextiling the Mars in Pisces, basically this is bringing some compassion, some compassionate energy to the way we are perhaps looking at this aspect collectively, this Jupiter and Capricorn retrograde right now, and helping us maybe see what's happening a little bit more compassionately and a little more empathetically, and being able to bring some of that energy to everything that we're experiencing collectively right now, so that we're able to heal, because that's really what Pisces is all about. It is about healing. It is about bringing people together and having a compassionate and understanding perspective. So asserting ourselves in this Piscean way while it's sextiling that Jupiter in Capricorn, as Jupiter is continuing its retrograde through that sign, is a part of this solstice chart moving forward. And I think that's really about all I want to share with you about the solstice. I'll be talking more about a similar chart to this with the solar eclipse that's coming up on the 21st. So tune in for that. But in general, I just want to say the solstice is a wonderful time for taking the opportunity to sit with yourself for a period of time and tap into your own sun in Cancer energy in your life, and try to feel into what this solstice energy is sharing with you. And you hopefully will, you know, gain some insight from that. In general, it's just a wonderful time to also be outside and to celebrate the longest day of the year, the most light, where we are radiating our light out into the world in this beautiful Cancerian, nurturing, loving, compassionate way with other people in our lives and collectively. Oh, the last thing I wanted to share is that I chose a card from the Power deck for this reading, and what it came out as is the Harmony card, and you can see it here. And I'll read you what it says. It says, harmony lives in the lodge of balance and involves equilibrium between the physical and spiritual aspects of your life. For there to be harmony, there must be balance. Imagine yourself as the hub of a sacred wheel standing in the center. This wheel must function every day of your life. If you imagine that the south is your physical self, the west your emotional self, the north your spiritual self, and the east your mental self, you see that you stand in an ancient wheel of truth. Consider whether you spend as much time in the physical, which is the south, as you do in the spiritual, the north. Are they balanced? Are they in harmony? Reflect on whether you spend more time in your emotions in the west than you do in your mind, the east. Adjust your daily life by being aware of your actions and behavior patterns to incorporate equal effort in all the directions so that your wheel will function in perfect harmony. I thought that was a nice symbol for the solstice time because I feel that it does speak to this chart in the sense that it is asking that we do find the balance between the expression of our emotions and our feelings with the responsibility of our actions in the world and in our society and in our communities. And I feel like this chart is asking for that kind of balance, that kind of harmony from us, where we are balancing the emotions, the logic, the physical, and the spiritual in our lives, so that we're at that center point rather than being taken in one direction too much. All right, thank you so much. See you next time. Bye-bye.